Okay, Avinash, we're here.
Yeah, we are here.
So it's been a little bit over 3.5 years now, right, since we founded the company.
3 years, 7 months.
Yeah, so it'll be 4 years in October.
Yeah.
And maybe just for the audience, maybe we could just describe where are we right now in terms of the game development and
also team building,
sure.
as a company.
So from your perspective, where are we now?
I mean, we are at a point where we are better than before.
Yep.
So that's a good news that we are, the slope is upwards. I think we are still pre-product, so we don't have anything out yet. And most of our focus has been building team and culture.
Yes.
So, yesterday only we were talking about when we put something out like a game or a build for external people to test, that's what actually represents us externally.
Yeah.
But what it needs to make that is actually strong culture and company and talent.
Yeah.
And that has been, I think, the most challenging for us, and that's where we have struggled a lot. So
I totally agree with you. I think that, to your point, we should be focused on the product and the build.
Yeah.
And we kind of were, but really the last very long time, 3.5, almost 4 years, has been really just, to your point, getting the culture right, building the team, getting the right people in place.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are now at a new phase in the company.
Yes.
So now it's less about, can we get the right people in place? We have pretty much a core team. There's still pieces that we're missing and we'd love to hire. But now I think there's going to be a shift towards the product and getting the game right. Would you agree with that?
100% agree.
And we've been fumbling around, but just for our audience, if you're wondering where is the game, when are you going to be able to see it? I think the rough timeline for us is that we're going to try to soft launch later this year. Now we've got two parts of our game. The first is just the core gameplay, and then this other kind of social MMO 3D space. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is just getting the gameplay right. We've struggled a lot with that, but I think we're going to really focus on that. There's been there's been a lot of stuff we've been doing on design, but now we're shifting to like really iterating, gameplay testing, and then really trying to get that right. Then we're going to go to the social 3D realm aspect, and then after that, if we get that right, then we're going to try to soft launch.
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes, or maybe I would not call a mistake, but one of the advices people get when they are starting a business is don't start complex, and that's exactly what we did.
we did. And we picked about the most difficult genre you could pick, right? Shooters is super challenging.
Yeah.
And I kind of debate internally whether that was the right choice or not. Sometimes I think it was the right choice to go for something big and ambitious.
Yeah.
Because I think that without going after something that big and ambitious, it will be kind of boring. But at the same time, it does make the challenge, especially starting with a very junior team, very, very difficult.
Yes. So we are creating something original here.
Yeah.
That's why it's very challenging for us in every aspect.
Yeah.
So if we had picked shooter, it's technically a challenging game, right?
Yeah.
But even in shooter, we picked a category which is by design very challenging.
Yeah.
So it's like we just chose the complexity in every way. And then one of the mistakes we did, we'll talk more in detail later on, is just we didn't know where to innovate, when not to innovate. So it's like the entire project became an innovation, including like every feature, every pixel of it.
Everything.
And the talent of the team is still maturing, very junior.
Yeah.
There has not been a game like this in India, so we could not expect more than this. So yeah.
But I guess just to summarize in terms of where we are, we've kind of completed a very long phase of building our core team. I think that's behind us now. There's still elements we need to add. We're focused on the game. And we'd love to soft launch later this year. We don't have an exact schedule for that. And soft launches, as many people in the mobile games industry know, can take anywhere from 2 years to, in some cases, 7 years or longer. So we don't have that much time, so we're going to have to rush. But I think what the audience and people who are considering coming to Lila can expect is that we are now extremely product focused. We're extremely ruthless in execution now, which we haven't been. and we're going to try and get something out before the end of the year that will then lead to us iterating in soft launch.
Yes. Yeah, I think that summarizes where we are at this moment.
And maybe also just, I want to be honest to a lot of the people who are considering potentially working at Lila or just interested in our company, but I'd love to hear from you, your perspective over the last 3.5, 4 years. What were some of the, you mentioned one of the mistakes we made in terms of trying to innovate everything, which was definitely not something we should have done, but other things you think in terms of mistakes that we've made or things we could have done better?
So, I mean, it was, I would expect, like, I have sympathy for us, that it's just very challenging thing to do, building a company, different type of culture, because Indian gaming industry is still mostly, outsourced and very young talent. So that's a challenge you cannot take away from the table. But I think the primary thing we made a mistake that we are working on a shooter game, and we could have chosen where to focus on. So our focus was on too many things which actually don't impact the gameplay in the start. So it's like focusing on let's say a lot of focus went on UI, lots of meta features, whereas the gameplay was not figured out. So what we are doing right now seems like the right approach, where what is that experience or emotional output players would get from playing this game, and can we figure that out? But we didn't start that way. We started like, we started in a way that we already know the entire game, and let's just build from screen to screen.
Right. Yeah, I would say like maybe another way of characterizing the problem that you're describing is that we didn't really start with a clear vision, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things that we've recently done is gone back and really specifically defined the game pillars of the game, the emotional pillar, gameplay pillars, as well as the visual pillars. And because of that lack of clarity, there was all sorts of like confusion and just like iteration and just things. It caused a lot of iteration because of that lack of clarity.
Yes.
And I would say for me, the biggest mistake I've made, but it also kind of, for me, and maybe we could talk about this as well in terms of like why we wanted to, co-found this company. But for me, it's always been trying to do something meaningful. And for me, it's been about wanting to help develop people and to develop people who potentially don't have the opportunity to. And I think that for me, the biggest mistake I made was that I think I put too much emphasis on effort and not enough on the trajectory of growth and not enough on outcomes.
Right.
And ultimately, I think I could try to save the world, but ultimately, if we're not profitable, if we're not successful, I can't help anybody. And we're just, everyone is hurt. Everyone's time is wasted. Nobody, it's a bad outcome for everybody. And so one of the big things that I've had to, it kind of breaks my heart because I want to see people succeed. I want to continue to invest in people. I want to continue to help train and coach them, but we do have a business to run. And so for me, like that shift towards one of the values that we talk about as character and cruelty, but I think there's just been a little bit too much on the character side and not enough on like, we have to make the company successful. And that should be the priority.
Yeah. I think we debated a lot on this, like over the years, like, what should be the focus. And I 100% believe that building something which gives some value to audience, and we are a consumer based company, we are building an entertainment product, is very important. And I think people who are able to do that learn a lot by creation. So I think initially we could just focus on let's just build it, and the learning will come from building, and just push people to just do critical thinking about, hey, how can we solve this problem? And that way they learn. I think we can have other tracks which we really wanted, because you are coming from a good place. Like we even want to invest, like, hey, even if it is not related to work, we want you to learn something so that as a professional you can grow. But I think the balance between this thing becomes very tricky when you are a startup. And I think the other thing is we are we are a very lean startup. We are very small, and I think that's one of the philosophies.
Now we are. We weren't so lean recently, but yeah,
Yes.
we're
But
getting lean.
but I think somewhere we align on that.
Yeah.
We do want to maintain a lean company
Yes.
where everybody contributes significantly.
Yep.
Like I don't imagine
Even
us.
freshers.
Yes. So I don't imagine us even being profitable and having a single person who doesn't contribute.
Right.
I think so. Yeah.
And maybe before I forget, because I just remembered that I think the one other mistake that we made as a company has been, as a startup, I think the critical thing for people to understand is that we don't have infinite resources, especially compared to bigger companies. And so we have to be very careful about some of the decisions that we make. And like, I don't think we need to put that much effort and analysis into every decision, but for what Jeff Bezos would call one-way door decisions, or decisions that have a big impact on the company in some way, whether it's in engineering or planning or design, that there wasn't enough thoughtfulness about decisions. And so it's just like, okay, here we need to make this decision. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Okay, we're going to do this. And we just kind of did that. And so I do think now, as I'm, especially with product team, really preaching about being more careful, like using a hypothesis tree or logic tree, breaking down what are all the components of the decision, writing it down, and having all of this key stakeholders, like, look at and think about the overall analysis so that we make much more careful decisions. And I think there have been about 3 decisions recently where, since implementing more of a logic tree approach, I think we've kind of dodged some bullets.
Well, now that we are talking about mistakes, one of the things we didn't do very well is just inter-team communication.
Oh, yes.
So it's like I don't know how we landed there, but we started with concept of AOR. But AOR doesn't mean that, okay, the teams separate out a lot. So somewhere it started developing and team just became very isolated. Like, very less communication between design engineering or art design, art engineering. It just happened, and it was actually pretty bad. So when we see people working together, actually the output is really great, and that's such a counter intuitive of having a small team but still pockets. It doesn't exist. Like, you have such a small team but still there are 5 people there not working together. It's his problem, he will figure it out. He told me to do it. Like, this was such a nonsense. So still working on it, but I think
it's a lot better.
It's a lot better. Yes.
And maybe shifting to a different topic, and maybe for some of the folks who are thinking about joining our company, I wanted to talk more about the mission of our company and what we're trying to accomplish. And for me, it's a little bit different, and I think it might be different for you, but it'd be good to get your perspective. But again, for me, my mission is to help develop a great organization, in an organization that helps enable people to achieve their full potential. And so I think one of the words that I know we've discussed a lot is like greatness. Like, how do we achieve greatness? Greatness in organization, greatness in product, greatness in your own ability to achieve something that you normally would not have. And so for me, that's kind of been, my North Star. But I know, like, early on when we talked, when we first met, that it sounded like you were really, and kind of aligned there, but like you really want to build a great engineering team, and so maybe you could talk about, is that the same for you? Has that changed, or and how do you view my interpretation of the mission versus your own interpretation?
I think my vision, I'm open to change it based on the scenario, because if I don't want to be rigid to anything I believe, so whatever I'm going to say is based on right now. And I think what vision you have, I totally align with that, because you can't build great product or great company if you don't have that. So either you will make a company where you are so profit oriented, where it just becomes your personal mission, and then slowly people will not align with you. They're like, okay, it's very, very easy to figure out, like, who is just personally motivated by some certain factor. For me, it has always been just building great products, which just provide some value to people. And when I started working on games, I just found games to be very intriguing, because they connect with humans in such a deep level that I felt like this is really cool. So for me, just building great product, and I believe that it can only be done when with great team. So great teams build great product, and that's where we align. Like, you know, if I have a mediocre team, it will be very hard for me to build great product. And not only engineering, but I think just a great team builds a great product. Sometimes you can have average engineering, average product, but people are really aligned and they just want to, you know, do something great, and then outcome is good.
Right.
So yeah.
And maybe the last thing we could talk about is we're here in Bangalore, in India. You know, I'm kind of a foreigner here, but it's like I've done this before in China, right? And so one of the great opportunities that I see, and one of the reasons why I personally wanted to come here to India, is that I think that there is a huge opportunity to build something great from India. And so, you know, in the past, I used to work at this company called Fun Plus, where we had this model where even when China was not dominant in games, we took an inexperienced team, brought some leads from around the world to fill in some specific knowledge and talent gaps. But eventually that team learned and became a world-class team. And that, for me, is kind of like the vision for what we're trying to do here in India. And so maybe I could ask you as well, Avinash, in terms of your thinking about India, and as somebody who has come up in the Indian game development ecosystem, and thinking about the opportunity for an Indian team to become world-class and to compete. Because for me, you know, one of the things I you know, sometimes yell at people in the office about is like, we are not competing against other Indian game companies. Like, there should not be an India standard and a global standard. There is just the global standard. I want our company to compete against Blizzard, Riot, Supercell. I want us to be better than them. And I think that if we find enough hardworking and focused and, you know, really diligent people, I think we can get there. But anyway, what do you think?
I think the last point you made is very interesting, because this is something which people talk about a lot. Like, you know, building a game for India. We also get asked a lot, like, are you Indian focused gaming company or global? And that question, to some extent, personally doesn't make sense to me, and completely thinking from consumer point of view, because in India people play global games, and they will play Indian games if they are good, or they have been playing that type of game on different platforms from their childhood, like, you know, Ludo. But I don't think they are very religious about, okay, I'll play an Indian game because it was made in India. They will play a game because it is good. So that anyway answers the question, like, okay, why would you, you know, set yourself to a limited scope, whereas the audience itself is wanting a bigger scope. So I think that just clarifies, you know, our goal that, hey, we just want to build great games, and great teams build a great game. You know. So,
and I just want to underscore that point, because people seem to misunderstand us as a company, where it's like, oh, you guys are coming to India for lower cost. And I think people who think this way have really a services-oriented mentality. That, you know, we're just building widgets, we're just building these things, whereas actually it's not about the cost, it's about the potential for people that we find here to become great. Because what people don't understand is that when we're developing games for billion-person platforms, and some of the games that I have worked on have made tremendous amounts of money, right? And so, like, you know, King of Avalon, as well as like the reskins, have made over $3-4 billion. Do the costs matter? They don't. Triple, quadruple, 10x the cost of production. But if you build a successful product on a scaled platform, like, you know, the App Store or Google Play, then it's really, the costs aren't the thing. And that's what people completely misunderstand. We're not here to find somebody who's 20%, 30%, 50% cheaper. We're here to find somebody who is really wanting to make something great, and is so dedicated they can beat somebody else in the West. That's what we're looking for.
Actually, this is something I found very bizarre when I heard that, because first of all, I'm also co-founder of this company.
Yeah.
So we started this company in India because it was not a short-term bet. It's a
Yes.
very long-term bet,
Long-term.
because anybody who is in Indian gaming, they know. Even the players know that now, after smartphones, actually Indian gaming is picking up.
Right.
So it's a market which is growing, and market is creating opportunity for gaming studios.
Yes.
So we are actually betting long-term in India. So that's why we are focused so much on culture and learning,
Right.
because we know we would be happy if somebody from Lila starts a gaming company.
Yes.
Right? Builds a $1 billion game, right? So we want to create an ecosystem. So it's not like, okay, today we are coming here, or I'm here, but for the cost and all. But it's more on the potential of the country.
Yes.
And young talent, because gaming still, in our recruiting we have seen, still gets very small percentage of talent of India. Like people still prefer going to abroad or SAS. But gaming is picking up, but still the talent which we get in gaming, if you ask questions like why India is not producing great games, because the talent is very less. It's not that talent is not there in India. Gaming, especially gaming, gets very less talent. So we are betting on long term that gaming is going to be big in India,
Yeah.
and we'll be able to build a strong team here.
Right. And maybe I could kind of clarify one aspect in terms
Yeah.
of the talent. When we say like the talent isn't here, I think it's not so much that the people capable of building great products aren't here.
Yeah.
It's that the direction and the organization and the platform to actually build that product hasn't been here yet.
Right.
That's what we're trying to build, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to, like, we've invested tremendous amounts of time and money into some of our people to help develop them. So I think like the people capable of developing $1 billion, incredible, really high quality, incredible products are here. They just need to have the right environment.
Right.
And at least that's our bet.
Yes. Yeah. So just let me ask you one question. You have been here from like the same time, like 3.5 years. I mean, physically we started after 1 year.
Yep.
You must have had different perspective towards, because different challenges at different stages, different set of people.
Yeah.
But where are you now in terms of,
I mean, I still believe in the thesis, right? I still believe that we can do it here. If I'm speaking honestly, it has been a little bit more difficult here than in China.
Right.
But I also think that I can see the progress. I can see some of the people in our company who are dramatically better, who have made significant improvements in terms of skill, capability, thinking. There are people in our company who could probably join any of the top gaming companies today and dramatically, increase their compensation. Now, I hope they stay, but if they go on, then that would be a success for us too, as you mentioned.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's taken a lot longer than I had hoped, but we're getting there. And I just, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to build the company that we're really looking to build.
Yeah, great. All right. Do you want to talk about the current challenges, the biggest challenges we have?
Yeah, maybe we can end with that. So I think the challenges now is that, so we have at least a core team. We're missing some pieces. So now it's just going to be around iteration, that play testing, getting the feedback loop, and executing as quickly as we can. And so I think that this is something that's a challenge just because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But I do think when I see some of the people on the team who are so committed, who I see working at the office late, who are spending time trying to tune things, I'm feeling pretty confident that even though we haven't really dived into that yet, we're just starting that process now.
Right.
I feel pretty good about our chances.
Yeah. If I have to talk on that, actually, if I be realistic, we have a game right now which is an extraction game. Like you can play it, but coming to our first point, that we are trying to build something new, a new experience, which we personally, after playing that game, we don't feel it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the biggest challenge right now is just figuring out the game mode. Can we provide a different experience? And through playtesting, through iterations, we don't have the answer yet. We have a plan. We have some ideas because we already have something working in our game. We have some intuition, like if we can tune it, change it, it can be a lot better. But I have intuition that we are not very far away, from figuring that out.
And maybe the last thing I could say for anyone watching here, in terms of the kind of person that we're looking for. First of all, I want to make it clear that what we're trying is very ambitious.
Yeah.
Tencent and NetEase have launched at least 10 extraction shooter games. They've all pretty much failed. There isn't a single extraction shooter game in the market that is successful at scale.
Yeah.
I mean, to some really small degrees of revenue, but not at scale. And so what we're trying to do is extremely difficult. On top of that, we have a relatively junior team.
Yeah.
So anyone who's looking to join our company better be ready for extreme challenge, right? Like what we're trying to do is very difficult, but if that's who you are, you're comfortable with risk, you're comfortable with taking on a very big challenge, then I think we're the company for you.
Yes, and it's a big, as an engineering team, I can say that it's a very big technical challenge.
Right.
Building a shooter is hard. Building a shooter for mobile is, as of now, seems to be harder, because we still have 6-7 years old devices which are still in the market.
Yeah.
Companies are still making devices with the similar configuration where you might think like, hey, devices are getting better, performance is good, but still there are like really not that powerful devices. So optimization is a challenge. Game has to run at certain FPS for a long duration, so very big technical challenge. And if you use Unity or Unreal, they let you build something very quickly, but that's not a product which you can ship. If you're building an ambitious thing, you have to build lots of things from scratch. So that's why the ability to dig deep, fundamentally understand concepts, and being able to come up with new solutions is needed for this game.
Yeah.
So if you want to join our engineering team or tech or anything related to tech, you have to be really, really strong in your fundamentals, and you have aspiration of building things. Like, you want to come up with your own render pipeline, any systems from scratch. So, Lila is the place.
All right. So I think with that, that's we can close there. So if you're interested, feel free to apply for one of our jobs on our website, and we'll probably be coming back at you maybe every month or so.
Every month, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right.